I'm a um, I am a C6 quad, and I was injured in July of 2020, and really excited to be part of the Kelly Brush family and be facilitating these conversations. We originally started this group in April in collaboration with the United Spinal Association and started these virtual discussion group focused on adaptive sports and recreational activities. So we meet bi-weekly every other Tuesday at 5:30, and the hope is really to provide just a platform for adaptive sports enthusiasts to engage in lively discussions about various recreational activities. So this week we are changing it up a bit and focusing our conversations around accessible travel. So whether you're itching to explore or headed home for the holidays, travel days can pose many challenges. But luckily we have some experts on this call, and we're going to have a really great conversation about just accessible tips as we travel. So we have Joy from Wheel the World, an organization that are experts on accessible travel. So whether you're looking to book accessible hotels or multi-day trips or just trying to find things to do, they have all the answers. So our Joy is going to share travel tips and solutions, and then share a little bit about Wheel the World and what they're doing to improve accessibility options. And don't forget also, our active project is our digital resource for all things adaptive sports and recreation. So whether you're trying to discover sports, find places to try them, connect with peers, we have informational videos on dozens of sports, hundreds of organizations and their events, forums, messaging, equipment, all the things. So don't forget to check out the active project as well. And we have Greg Durso on our call as well, and Kelly Brush expert as well for accessible travel. So he's going to share a little bit on what he finds the most, you know, great tips on how he travels. So we'll have Joy and Greg, and then we'd like to open up the discussion and really jump in, introduce yourself, share whether, if you're showing up authentically and unapologetically, you encourage others to do the same, which always allows for a more meaningful and productive and insightful conversation. So without further ado, I am gonna hand it off to Joy.
Great. Nice to meet everybody. Is it okay if I go ahead and share my screen?
Yeah, Joy, I also gave you co-host privileges, so feel free to share your screen with us. Should be good to go.
Oh,
There you go.
Are we good?
oh, I see.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, thank you for letting Wheel the World be a part of this conversation. I am here because I'm also a user of the product. A little bit about me. I'm a wife to a C6-7 quadriplegic for 28 years. My husband's been in a chair for 42 years. I'm a mom of twins. I'm a recreation therapist, and I love to travel. So for me, like being a part of this conversation was awesome because I love what we have found for accessible travel, and I wanted to share some of that with you guys. So stop me if there's any questions along the way, but I want to share with you guys what Wheel the World's doing in accessible travel, and then just talk about some practical travel tips. But please, just shout out if you have any questions as I go. Also, most recently, I started a podcast with Wheel the World, and it's called Travel Talk with Joy. And I host different people that have interesting life stories and talk about travel. We talk about life in general, and that you can find all of that on Wheel the World page. So the way I first found out about accessible travel, period, was I went on a trip. And if you guys don't know Corey Lee, make sure you follow him. Write this down: Curb Free with Corey Lee. Corey is the guy in the green chair with the brown pants and the sunglasses. He is I feel the biggest person out there doing accessible travel as far as sharing tips and also just his experiences. He has spinal muscular atrophy, and so he travels with a power chair, but his tips are amazing. And so he hosts different trips. So my husband, the bald guy right there, he and I went on a trip with Corey, and the reason I went on this trip was just because I wanted to meet this guy, Corey Lee. I was so impressed by what he's doing with his life. Corey's been to 50 countries with a very significant disability. And so I was like, we got to go there. So we went to Chile, never been to Chile before, but I got to meet Corey. And more importantly, I found out about the importance of accessible travel. Prior to that, my husband and I just kind of did it on our own, did a lot of research on the internet. But my husband's disability, like I said, he's been injured for 40 years. It was getting worse over the years. You know, he's had shoulder surgeries, tricep repairs. He was a wheelchair athlete for a long time. And after doing, you know, athletics and Paralympics for many years, his shoulders are kind of giving out on him. So we needed to have more accessible travel. So we went on this trip, and this is what it looked like. It was like we saw these amazing views. We went to this mountainside hot springs. That's where they're lowering in the hot springs, and we have accessible transportation. Everything was done for us, and I didn't have to do a thing. And it was the first time where I arrived at a trip and I felt free to just experience a trip. And, you know, some of you may relate with that, of feeling like stress going into the trip and then arriving there and like having a room that doesn't work for you. And you're like, this was supposed to be fun, and it wasn't fun. This trip was nothing but fun because they got it all right. It was incredible. And so that's why I first came in contact with Wheel the World. And their whole goal is to make the world accessible. And the way it was started was by a guy, and he's a C6 quad also. He's a guy in this orange wheelchair. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this, but it's called a Jolette wheelchair, and it's a dependent chair, but it's on a single track up in the mountains. This is the only way you can get to this trek up in Patagonia. So he and his buddies did this amazing trek up in Patagonia, and they took like a little skeleton film crew because they saw how hard this was to plan. And when they came down, they said, this is what we need to do for a business. We need to open a business that is a tech platform to help accessibility improve. So Alvaro became a wheelchair user when he was 18. Always loved to travel with his family. And he's like, I don't want to stop traveling. So he and his business partner, his best friend, they started Wheel the World. And what they developed is an online travel marketplace to find and book hotels, things to do, multi-day trips, and group tours. And Corey Lee's trip was one of the group tours I went on. So what they realize is right now, the information out there is inaccurate. You know, you go and you book a room that says it's accessible. Most of the time, it's not going to be accessible for you because accessibility varies for everyone. So that's a problem. And so what they've decided is we're going to do something totally different. And this is amazing because, you know, you come to this beautiful room and I look at that and I'm like, this is so pretty, but my husband can't get in that bed anymore. This bed is too high, you know? And the crazy thing though, and I don't know if you guys knew this, but did you know that the ADA does not address bed height? So it's like, how is a room supposed to be accessible for someone if bed height's not even a requirement in the ADA law? So what they've done is they've gone and got verified hotel accessibility information. And the reason they know that it's accurate is because they've gone and literally measured over 2,200 hotel rooms and counting. So they know how high the bed is. They know, is there space under the bed for a Hoyer? They know what's the shower situation, the turning circumference in the bathroom, all those detailed information. So you get the right room for you. So what we've done is we also have an accessibility profile. And this is the part when they told me this, I was like, nah, this isn't true. But this is true because we use this all the time. So you go up and you set a traveler profile, and it asks you, what bed height do you want? Do you need space under the bed for a Hoyer? Do you need a pool that has a lift? Like all those really, really specific details about you. And then they come back and they take that information and they match that with the hotels. So again, our hotel mappers are out there, beds, showers, door widths, 200 data points they're out there measuring, and then they put it all together. So like if you want to go stay at the Westin, it's going to take your information and all the information in the Atlanta area, if you're going to Atlanta, and it's going to pop out the best hotels for you. So you can see right here, look, the door width 38 inches, the bed height 31 inches. That's too high for my husband. He wants a 25-inch high bed height. So, you know, it's the idea that it's going to be accessible for you, not just quote unquote the accessible room. And so the other great thing about it is it's going to come out and say, okay, partial, adequate, or outstanding for each of the matches in Atlanta area. And then it says why. And this is the most amazing thing because like we went to Washington, D.C. recently and we only there for one night. So he didn't care about a shower. He's like, I don't need to get in the shower, but all I need to know is what's the bed height. And so it told us, okay, this is only partially accessible for you, but it says like the bed height. And so this is the kind of thing that I think is the most amazing thing as the planner of travel in my world. The other thing that is most amazing, and I'm sure you guys have all been through this, where you make the phone call and you say, okay, yeah, I need to make sure that I reserve the wheelchair accessible roll-in shower, but I just want to make sure I have it. And then 2 weeks before you, okay, I'm making sure that I have the wheelchair accessible room with the roll-in shower. You do all those phone calls. Well, now I don't do any of that. Wheel the World does all the phone calls for me, and I don't have to do any of it anymore. And if you get there, and this hasn't happened to us, I'm sure things do happen occasionally. Hasn't happened to me yet. But if you show up and the room is given away or whatever, you get your money back. So it really has just taken all the stress out of travel for me. And the great thing is we also do shore excursions, days trip, and accessible activities. You know, you might be on a cruise to the Bahamas and you want to do the activities that the shore excursions have, but none of them are accessible. So now we do the accessible activities. And this is the even better part of it. We put all of our tour operators through the Wheel the World Academy. And at the Wheel the World Academy, we train them about disability and just kind of educate. Here's the potential travelers that you'll be having travel. You need to make sure you know where the accessible bathroom is. You need to make sure that you know the step-free way to get somewhere. And so we arrive on all these tours that we do, and the person already understands what our needs are going to be, and it's not a surprise. So this is something that's really changing how people are treated while they're traveling, which I think is incredible. This is me and my husband. This is a trip in Spain, but we also do like these adventures around the world. You choose your destination, we plan everything for you, you confirm the booking, and it's done. The idea that there's so much less stress in my travel life, it's incredible. Better for my marriage too, I'm sure. Accessible transportation, you know, used to be my husband liked to just jump in a car, not a problem. He doesn't like to jump in a car anymore. He wants accessible transportation. Accessible accommodations. And if you notice this picture right here, do you see how the bed height is the exact height he needs? It's because they knew that he wanted a 25-inch high bed, not a 31-inch high bed. And then also they're doing all the accessible activities for us. Incredible. So here's some of the places around the world that we're going. And when I first saw this list, I thought, wow, Morocco. I thought Morocco would be too hard. Machu Picchu. I thought Machu Picchu would be too hard. So it really opened us up for even bigger adventures than I thought. I thought some of these were ones that I wouldn't, do with my husband because I thought they were too big for that type of venture, too hard to plan. But since I've been with Wheel the World, we went to Iceland last year. And that was incredible. And I never even thought Iceland would be on my list, And then here's just around the US. So we do just if you need a hotel room, we do all those type of bookings, but also all of these type of bookings to go to Maui and have accessible things to do in Maui. Zion National Park, using one of those wheelchairs, the Yolette wheelchair to get to the top of Zion. These kind of things are possible And, we've talked about, how does travel really change things for people? But I feel it really does. I think getting outside your comfort zone does change things for people. This is Corey. And, this quote that he says, uh, I love to travel because I love shattering perceptions and showing the world what's possible for wheelchair users. I love that travel pushes me outside of my comfort zone. And I think this is so true, I think that often, this is for my husband and I, it's so much easier to stay in our own comfort zone and to not push ourselves. And it's really when we push ourselves to travel to Iceland or travel to Chile and try things outside of our boundaries that you continue to grow. So, what has Wheel of the World done for me? We've been able to go to Rome, and the driver that we had when we went to Rome dropped us off at the closest entrance to the Colosseum with our tour guide that knew exactly where everything is in the Colosseum that we needed to do. And then our trip, we took a little small trip to go to Florence outside of Rome. And what Wheel of the World did for us then, the handler kind of came to our hotel, walked us to the train station, white gloved, delivered us to the accessibility department at the train station. We get on the train, go to Florence. In Florence, there's someone that meets us there, walks us to our hotel. Like, it's just the idea of we're no longer having to say, but where's the curb cut? Where's this? Where's that? It's all there for us. And it's just made it to be, I don't like these words, but it's like normalized travel. And when I think of what travel used to be, travel created stress. And now, as long as I'm using Wheel of the World, it's just created amazing, fun, relaxed memories instead of that, is it going to be okay? But I want to talk a little bit about some specific travel tips. So I don't know how many of you have been traveling yet since your injury. So I'm just going to go ahead and go as if nobody has, and start from ground zero. So first thing, airlines. That's the one thing we don't have a whole lot of control over these days is air travel. Hopefully it's going to change in the future, but there's things that we can do to help make that better. So let the airlines know that you need what type of wheelchair you have and request the bulkhead, number one. For some of you that use powered chairs, some airplanes don't have a place for certain powered chairs. So that's the most important thing just to do before you even book. Second thing, put an air tag on your chair so you can always track it. This is something that Corey Lee told me. He said he always has an air tag in his chair, whether it's under the cushion, whether it's in the back pocket. He finds a place where it's not going to have a problem. Next, take off all removable parts. Store them in a tote bag to bring on the airplane easily. Don't forget to bring your cushion. Things like side guards, all of that should be stowed somewhere where it's not going to fall off. Brake extension handles, all those type of things. Pack a backpack with quick fix supplies, zip ties, extra Velcro, duct tape, and a plastic bag and bubble wrap to protect your joystick. I talked about how my husband has had some decrease in function lately, and so he got a power chair, and we traveled with it. And the first time we traveled with it, we said, "Oh, probably don't need to have that much bubble wrap. It's going to be fine." So we had some for the first flight home. We didn't have any more bubble wrap. We'd forgotten to bring it with us, and for sure his joystick was broken on the way home. So bring a big thing of bubble wrap on the way there, bubble wrap on the way home. Attach a laminated info sheet to your chair with instructions if you use a power chair. I think this is something, if you put your photo and contact information. Twice we've had calls where they say we are having trouble getting it out of gear. They weren't used to that chair, and so they called us literally while we were on the plane. So something like that. And I just think a photo kind of attaches you to your chair, so people say, okay, this is this man's chair. I want to take extra care of it. It's his legs. People have always said, well, how do you pee on a plane? And this is our best way of doing it. So we always bring a Gatorade bottle on the plane, an empty Gatorade bottle. And, there are ways where you can transfer to an aisle chair and go to the bathroom for emergencies, but we always call them pee emergencies. And he just brings a blanket. I always have a blanket in the bag, and he uses a Gatorade bottle, pees in the seat, and then I go and throw the bottle away. Now, one story I will share is I was watching a movie one time. It was in the middle of the night. We were flying, and he peed in the bottle, and I put the lid on and was just holding it. And I got thirsty, and I forgot that it was not really Gatorade. And so literally on the flight, I go, I'm watching my movie, I undo it, take a huge swig. So, moral of the story is, do not wait to empty that. Go ahead and empty it right away, or put it in your bag so you don't forget that it's not Gatorade. Yeah, that was a true story. And then, other just important travel tips. Pack a carry-on with 1 day of your medication and all chair chargers. Chair chargers are the most important things, really, but also your medication. The other things are be an advocate for yourself. If you don't like the way you're treated, speak up, especially on transferring. People that transfer you from your chair to an aisle chair, and then you get on the airplane in the aisle chair. Sometimes those people show up, and my husband's like 220, 6'1", and people show up that are 5'3", 150 pounds. He says, no, you have to get other people. This is not going to be safe. And, you can do it in a kind way, but I think it's so important to be directive of that care, or it could just be unsafe. But also know the Air Carrier Access Act. That's something hopefully, Diane, maybe you could link to everybody. It's really knowing what your rights are, as far as, you don't have to get off the plane until your chair is right there. The other day, Corey Lee, he literally stayed on the plane for an hour because they never brought his power chair. Finally, after they brought it, he got out and got on his power chair. But if he had not, refused, he would have been sitting in an aisle chair, which for him, he doesn't have any trunk control, pretty much like a high quad. He would have been sitting very unsafe in an aisle chair for an hour. So you need to make sure you know your rights for that. And then another just simple hotel thing is, if the bed is too high, maybe you didn't use Wheel the World and you get there and it's too high. Often we have said, remove the box springs. And that's an easy win to be able to still get in and out of bed easily, and not have it be a circus tricks to get in and out of bed. And finally, what I have found is best is using an accessible travel company. There are other accessible travel companies. So you don't have to use Wheel the World, but it's the idea that make sure that you go with someone that really understands your needs. And, people always say, well, is it extra money to use an accessible travel company? It's not for booking hotels. For our hotels, if you look at like our price on hotel in Atlanta, or you look at Expedia's price, same thing. The only time where you will have a higher price is for like doing a multi-day tour, or also we do group tours. Those type of things, you're going to have a little bit higher price because you're having to use accessible transportation. We have private tours. So those are going to be a higher price than, if you just went and looked at a rate of a group trip to Mexico without having any type of accessibility needs. But it really has made such a difference. So, what kind of questions do you guys have about what Wheel the World does, or about my husband and I's travel? I know somebody has a question.
So do you have the ability to use like hotel points in doing hotel bookings?
Yes. So I'm all about points as well, all about the points. And so what we do is we go ahead and we book with Wheel the World. And then when we get to the hotel, like we use Bonvoy, so a lot of Marriott properties, is we go ahead and just give them our number when we get there. Not a problem.
Good.
Got a question. The aisles in the planes, are they all wide enough? on the overseas flight, I can understand. How about the in-state flights?
On airlines, none of them are wide enough for average
Okay.
wheelchairs. And
No, I
yeah,
mean just to get to the bathroom. I mean to you have to get into an aisle chair, correct? Okay. Um, the last plane I was on, it's been a while, but I mean, I don't even know if they had a aisle chair that you could go back, to there was no way I was getting back there.
yeah. So on international flights, they're required to have an aisle chair. So
Yes.
on longer flights, for sure, they have to. And it does go all the way to the back. It's just, it's more difficult, obviously, but they're trained to do that when people have an emergency.
Sure. Oh, no, I understand. And on your in-state flights, the aisle was wide enough.
For an aisle chair, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
so I mean, we fly all the time,
Sure.
and yeah, so you just take your personal chair all the way up to the front of the plane, and there, if you need assistance, they'll help you transfer to the aisle chair, and then two people help the aisle chair to get all the way through the aisles back to your seat. And you have the right to do this before anybody else boards the plane. That's one of the things with the Air Carrier Access Act.
Okay, I understand now. But the last time I flew, there were no aisle chairs. That's how it's been. They just lifted me up and put me in my seat. One on each side of me. This is years ago.
Okay.
I'm talking. I've been in this chair for 30 years, so this has been probably 29 years ago. And that's why I think things have changed.
Yes, that would be illegal now because that's unsafe.
Okay. Well, I didn't know. That's why I wanted to ask.
Stephen?
There are a couple questions in the chat.
Should I go ahead? So I've been interested in setting up a bicycle tour in Europe for my son and myself, and there are plenty of companies that, sort of will just basically arrange hotels and then ferry people's baggage from one location to another every day. And as long as you had accessible hotels, and I mean, these outfits could just as easily take a wheelchair along with everything else. But I haven't found anybody, and I haven't looked exhaustively, but I haven't found anybody who would do that. Do you have any suggestions about how to arrange that? There are plenty of good touring opportunities in Europe, and we'd obviously with the hand cycles just plan daily itineraries that were an appropriate length, so weren't too many hours and whatnot. But we'd need somebody to take the wheelchair from one place to another, and then we would need wheelchair accessible hotels, obviously.
With the wheelchair accessible hotels, if I were recommending which countries to start planning this for, is I would say Spain would be my number one if I had to pick, because they have just so much better accessibility around Spain than a lot of countries. I think Barcelona is one of the most accessible European cities there is. As far as, and that's definitely something Wheel the World does. So we could, look at that and help you find hotels in areas that you want to go. As far as someone to provide the assistance with getting things from place to place, we have transportation providers in different locations around the world. And that would be something that maybe that would be like a kind of a custom thing. I've never had anybody ask that question before because it's very specialized what you're doing. And that sounds like an amazing trip.
Yeah, well, the people who take part in the Kelly Brush Ride every year are probably a pretty, a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them would be interested in doing the same thing, So
yeah.
I also want to say if anyone else has answers to these questions, feel free to answer them as well. Everybody's able to talk if you want to.
I think honestly, was going to say, Stephen, to your question to Joy, I think there's a room for like collaboration to do both. I think it's something that we've always looked into too from the KBF is how can we do like one of those VPT tours, right? Like with them and what does that look like? But I think like, right, like Joy has the means and the ability to the transportation side to figure out what that could be to get there, just figuring out where you want to be and what hotels you want to be in and planning that ride out. I think it would actually be a unique situation, something I've always thought about and how to do that. And do you stick on to the able-bodied tour and just like tough it through, or do you actually create something unique that's like more pleasurable for you, but also accommodates the ride itself as well? So it's a dual thing, but I bet you like you two of you could figure that out for sure based upon that. I also just wanted to just give Joy a big shout out here to everything that Wheel of World does and all the work they did. I've gone on one of their trips before and it was really eye-opening and amazing, and taking all the logistical stuff you have to think about and just throwing that out the door and not having to actually think about that ever. And you just wake up, you eat breakfast, you just do things and not have to worry about anything else. All the transportation, all your bags, all that stuff is all there for them. So just a big kudos to everything they do with Rule the World. And I highly suggest anyone to go and take one of their trips. And I was going to say too, Joy, you should probably just maybe a little bit more about some of your trips and what the actual that white glove service you guys like talk about and how much of that logistics you actually do take care of. I think it's probably an important note to think about when we think about this stuff as well.
Yeah. So one trip, so we have twins that are 22 and they still love it when mom and dad pay for a trip. So we went to Greece last summer and we were going to go on a Greek cruise. Well, I'd never been to Athens either. So we used Wheel the World to plan our trip, like our 4-day trip to Athens first. And it was so great because, again, we show up at the airport. There's an accessible vehicle waiting to take us to our accessible room. And that was specifically for Bert, my husband. And then we had tours. We had a food tour one day. We went to the Parthenon and did with accessible transportation, get the Parthenon. And I don't know if anybody's been to Greece, but I was blown away because there's an elevator on the side of the Parthenon. The Parthenon is it 3,000 years old? Let's say 3,000. Don't fact check on me, but there's an elevator that goes up the side of the Parthenon. And when people say, oh, that's too old to make it accessible, I say, go to the Parthenon. It's 3,000 years old. And there's an elevator that went all the way to the top. Our tour guide knew exactly, which way to get Bert to the top. And then we get there. Our guide helps us all the way around because it is a little hard to navigate up there. It's not completely accessible, but helped in any way that my husband needed. We came down from there, went to the museum that they had arranged for us, and then that night did a whole food and wine tour. And again, it's, those kind of things in the past would take me doing a bunch of phone calls, a bunch of emails, and to be able to just have us and the kids experience that just as again, normal family, it was incredible. So then we get on the cruise, and the cruise had 4 stops, and not all cruise stops are accessible. I don't know if you guys know that, but a lot of cruise stops you can't get off on because they have the tender. And just for those of you who don't know, tender boats are smaller boats that they take to the big boat to get people back to shore if the port's not big enough to have the ship in there. So my husband couldn't get off on every port, but on the ports that he could, we tried to make sure that we could find an accessible activity to do. And so Wheel the World, we haven't gone the entire world yet. There's still places we definitely aren't, but we got to do 2 really great tours in different Greek islands. And all because we had Wheel the World to plan those. Because, when you go on a cruise, it'll have all the activities that everybody can do, but then there's none that are accessible because they don't have the accessible transportation. And again, that just helped so much in making it a family trip where we got to do everything as a family for the most part. And that's to me like just another type of like that white glove service I was talking about. When we went to Iceland, and there's parts of Iceland that are not very accessible, but by going with a tour operator like Wheel the World. Again, we had the person that picks us up at the airport, takes us to our hotel, knows the type of accessibility we need. And then we had I think it was a 6-day tour around different parts of Iceland. And we got to go to the Blue Lagoon, and they knew we were coming. And the Blue Lagoon is the most amazing natural hot springs. And they knew that we were coming and had the accessible chair all set for our group to get in and out. And it was those kind of things, and having someone coordinate it for us without me having to be the person always like the family coordinator. That it makes it just normalizes travel, and I love it. And I'm so passionate about it. So when I came back from Chile, that's my thing, is I was like, I have to do something with this organization. And so what I do now is I have the podcast, Travel Talk with Joy. And also we have a really great community. So if you write this down, it's a Facebook group called the Accessible Travel Community. We started about 18 months ago, and now there's about 30,000 people that are in it. And people are just chatting about accessible travel. And then we tell about what's new at Wheel the World as well. But it's been a great thing to help learn more about what people in the community want. What else in the chat? Surprised by Machu Picchu. I was surprised by Machu Picchu too. Yes.
For Stephen, I've had 3 trips where I was sponsored to go do some competitions in Europe, and so I had racing equipment with me. The first time I didn't know when I'd get back, and since other people were paying the airfare and all that, 6 of my 8 great grandparents grew up, started in the same communities, maybe 30 kilometers from each other, and 4 of them were from the same town. So I wanted to go, and I thought about taking planes from different places after the races, but the train system is amazing there, and you can bring equipment on, and I didn't have any problem. The one thing I'd say is just in advance measure your everyday chair in centimeters, and know, because I did an estimate and they said, oh, that's too big, you can't bring it on, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, here's the actual real measurements, and then they're like, oh, that's acceptable, you can come. They all have different ways, and the airports are outside of town, then you got to get transportation in or whatever. The trains go right to the city centers, and it's easy to get around there. In Poland, it's the special forces, the guys all in black like SWAT that escort you from outside the train station to your station, and they're carrying your luggage, and everybody looks to see what you did wrong because you got the 8 SWAT guys circling you and carrying your luggage, right? But then they just lift you up and put you in the train. And then the Germans, they have a machine, and one person operates it, and it's very efficient and all that. And the Danes try to have a machine, but it's broken, and so then they have to come up with something that is very similar. But in all the places I was able to, the people are very accommodating, even though they don't have laws that force them to be accommodating. And that's not to say these tours aren't worth every bit of it. The other trip, so I was going to these other countries, and you can go into the State Department and get the email addresses for the embassies. And I just emailed all of them, said, I'm a T4 paraplegic in a wheelchair. I sure hope I don't need consular services, but in the event I do, is there anything special I need to do? And every time I've always gotten emails back, well, here's the local mobile numbers for the various U.S. Diplomats over here, and just have them in your phone if you need us, call. And then I guess they don't have enough reasons to party. They all created a reception that they invited me to, just because I guess they don't give any. So email your U.S. embassy and have a party in the community you're going to, and then you can pick up other tips. I don't ever let the airlines know that I'm in a wheelchair, because I've had several bad experiences where they change my flights to make the layovers shorter. And, I plan my layovers long enough. In fact, last night I had an hour and a half layover, but by the time I got my chair from my first leg, and got to the gate for my second flight, they were just 6 minutes from boarding. And if I didn't have, all that time, it would have, either missed the flight or, it's a hard load when they've already started boarding, and then you have to get into the aisle chair and all that. So
Use a manual chair?
I do. I'm I push with a manual chair and all that. And as far as the medications, don't just put one day supply in your carry-on. Take all your medications in your carry-on. You don't need them lost in your luggage. Just have your medications with you all the time. I take 30 prescriptions a day for all kinds of complex reasons. I'm not just going to take a day's worth. I'm going to have them all there, because if they lose my luggage for any length of time, then I start having all kinds of problems. So just do all that. And yeah, yesterday's flight on Southwest, I actually saw in their little cabinet where they had their in-flight aisle chair. It was the first time I'd ever seen an in-flight aisle chair that didn't have cobwebs on it. So somebody must have just recently cleaned it off or had to use it, because normally if you force them to get the in-flight aisle, they'll usually say, oh, we don't have one, but then you just remind them of the requirements under the Air Carrier Access Act, and you can wipe out the entire profitability of this flight with one fine. They magically find the in-flight aisle chair. But you sometimes have to assert yourself to get it. With the air tags, and I've just done this to other people, the one problem you have now that makes the AirTag almost worthless is the warning that Apple puts out on your phone saying, the same AirTag that was with you 400 miles ago is still with you, so you might be being stalked, and then that freaks people out, and they hit the button to, make the AirTag go off and make a noise so they can see who the stalker is, and that just creates a whole scene when your AirTag goes. So, they just don't have good way, and I wish people wouldn't be pricks about it, thinking, yeah, of course, on the airplane, we're going to be, two places, and yeah, we're not stalking you. We're just on the same damn flight, and now we're in the luggage area. But people are either pricks or too nervous or whatever, but it's hard to put AirTags on anything now if you're doing a lot of traveling.
Thanks, Scott. I just wanted to open it up. I think we have about 15 more minutes. So anyone, if you have last minute questions or anything else you guys want to share, we'd love to hear from you guys.
Hi guys, this is Stenson. I had a question in the chat about, do you know how getting assistance with aids work when you're traveling outside the state? My understanding is that not a lot of the agencies allow it, but I'm trying to figure out if there's a way around it.
Like to get a caregiver outside your state?
Yes, exactly. Right now I have it through the agency, so my understanding is their insurance only is covered for the state level. So, there's some issues around falling outside of compliance with that and just legalities. So I'm trying to figure out a way to get around it. Yeah.
I don't know specifics about that. Anyone else?
That either.
I might have some things. You could maybe look into like your local state. My name's Jackie and I live in Colorado. So there are some like in-state programs that travel outside of the country. So I know Joy mentioned like there's other programs. So maybe you could find one that is in-state that would have a provider that would be willing to travel with you.
That's a good point, Jackie.
For my husband, he likes to go to Las Vegas, and I don't like to go to Las Vegas that much. And so he actually just found an aid through contacting a local hospital, like literally like rehab center where a spinal cord injury go, and just started talking to people and ended up finding a nurse out there. Another place that I think if you can travel to the place and just get the aid in the other location, there's another group called Spinal Cord Injury USA, and he's posted in that before, asking anybody have an aid in Nebraska or where he was trying to go, and that's been a way that he's found an aid before also. So use the local communities for spinal cord injury communities. I think that's a really good one.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Spinal Cord Injury USA Facebook group.
Sorry, Joy. What state are you in, Stinson?
I'm in New York and I'm trying to go back to my favorite place, Miami.
I live by the philosophy, what they don't know won't hurt them, and just take my aids with me when I go. But I can understand wanting to be within the law. So that's just what I do.
Where do you live?
I'm in New Hampshire, but they finally have a program here in New Hampshire where you can take your aids out of state legally. Before that, I just traveled with them anyway.
There's a couple of spinal cord United Spinal affiliates, one in Broward County and one in Dade County, that have websites and Facebook pages and all that. But you could, inquire down there in South Florida and just see if anybody can refer or if their aid is looking to do some extra work.
Greg, if you want to explain some of your travels too, I know I wanted to get you on a little bit before the end of the call.
Yeah, no, I think just honestly, between Scott and Joy, that's really good points. But I think the biggest thing to understand is like measuring your comfort level, right? I think the biggest thing before you travel is like, what are you prepared to do, like with your comfort, right? So I think if you can gauge that first, I can tell you that's why like going with Real the World is so good. If you just really need to like be able to travel and have to figure all those things out and have those things done for you. I went to Costa Rica with them and I had an absolute blast. I also travel all around the world on my own. I've been to Sri Lanka by myself and rode in tuk-tuks next to elephants just without just planning stuff like that, what that is. So I think it's finding your comfort level and knowing what's going to be good for you. And the biggest takeaway to that is being proactive and being an advocate for yourself. I think you need to act like you've been there before when you're doing these things. And I think that's how you're going to do it. And I think like when you're on the plane and you need the aisle chair to go to the bathroom because Jason put it up there about you number 2, like it should be there and it should be there for you. And they should never say no to you to be able to do that. I think just making sure you have your tags for your chair. I always try to make proactive to go up to the booth and to check in with the flights to make sure the aisle chair is going to be there, that the tag is on mine and making sure that no, like they're not coming to me. I'm being proactive enough to be able to do that stuff, watching what I eat and drink on the airplane before I get on there, regulating that stuff so you have no surprises is huge. And then to Scott's point of, he called the embassies, right? Just being prepared for yourself. I think try not to be ignorant, try not to be naive about what you're doing and where you're going it. Measuring that travel capacity is huge. I think I've traveled with my ski and mountain bike on the same airplanes across the country too. So knowing how to deal with that, things are mobility devices and wheelchairs. They're not a bike or a ski or whatever that is. It's different for you and making sure you act that way. But also if bike has a battery, you're shipping that battery. You're not bringing it on the plane with you. Again, you're not being naive to what's there and circumnavigating, what we've all strived for, hard to work with. So I think it's the fine line of that comfort level and being there. I also think too is all your morning routine stuff and your supplies, medication, like coming with you on your overhead. Even when I went to Costa Rica, this is not where the world's for us, but my baggage was lost, right? And for 3 days, I didn't know where it was. I think I called the airline a million times. They still thought it was on some flight from, Mexico, I think it was in like Texas or something like that, but I had already been there, and eventually my bag got dropped off 3 days later. I didn't even know it, but I had all of my morning routine stuff, my medication already packed in my carry-on bag. So having stuff like that, again, so it's being proactive, it's being an advocate for yourself, understanding that, and then measuring your comfort level. I think that to me is the biggest thing. What are you prepared to do, and how far could you go if you were someplace, and what do you need to have that? And I think that's why it's so cool to see the diverse group of individuals that are on this group, where you can get yourself catered to what you need and have that experience, and you can also find ways to travel and do your sport or do your activity that you want to be doing on your own. I think we've all been there, and it's interesting to see how we each go about that from that standpoint. So I think to me those are the biggest things. And I always think for layovers too, it's like if you want a direct flight, it's great, but if you can, I think just leaving at least an hour minimum in between your next flight, I think is huge. It's your first one on, but your last one off, and the less of the time your last one off, they're taking forever with the aisle chair and again, like managing stress and having to worry about that. So just taking the time, it's better to be in an airport all day long, to have nice facilities and a bathroom that you can use that's 4 or 5 hours longer than trying to sneak on a flight that's got a 45-minute layover just so you can get to someplace a little bit earlier. I think you need to understand that our needs are different. And so make it as comfortable or as easy it is for you as possible. If that's extending things out longer than it needs to be, at the end of the day, it's going to be better for you because we can't afford that stuff. We can't have chairs breaks. We can't lose our luggage. We can't have that stuff happen to us. It's not ideal. So to kind of take those factors the best we can and do the best we can with it I think is huge. So that's just kind of sort of my 2 cents, but it's just good hearing what Joy was said in her things, and also too with Scott doing what he's doing over there, and what does that look like for you?
I'll add one other thing, and it really should be for everybody, not just people with physical deficits traveling. If you go to a country and you don't know the language, at least learn hello, thank you, and please. And, just making the attempt will basically, open them up to doing the rest of the transaction in English, right? But, got to know hello, you got to know please, and well, thank you, and yeah, they'll take care of you even though you don't know the language.
That's a really good point. I interviewed a woman recently. She's in a wheelchair, been to 195 countries, and she said the same thing. Hello, thank you, and please. Like, good suggestions for sure.
Good. Does anyone else want to share anything else or any last minute questions? It's so great to see everyone on this call. Oh, David, yeah.
Hi, Joy. Oh my goodness. You are so thorough about your talk. And you guys, I know it's 3 minutes late and you were already at it going full speed. You covered everything. I'm amazed. And your energy is just infectious. Thank you for your time today. And I'll be reaching out to you after this because, you really are the right person for the right job on this one because you are really great at communicating. I don't want to take too much time, but first off, I have to say I live by Gatorade bottles, and every day, I have one next to my bed, and that is my worst nightmare come true. I've grabbed it before and never actually did it, actually because my water bottle's next to it. Oh my goodness. Yikes. That's my worst nightmare. 2 questions, probably something really basic, but where do you put the box spring? You put it in the hallway when you pull off the box spring? And I guess my other question is, I personally have not found a restroom large enough for me, even with an aisle chair, to get into. So is that common in the 740, 767s, or what planes carry it are large enough to do that?
Sometimes I feel like you're sounding like another player. Cleveland's success leans largely on its bullpen.
We good?
Yeah.
Okay. So first thing with the bed, my husband just calls and says, need to move the box springs, and either they just take it out. I don't know what they do with it. A couple times they said we don't have any place to put it, and they, lean it up against a wall, but usually 99% of the time they just take it somewhere else. I have no idea what they do with it.
Yeah, the hotel usually just takes it. It's great.
What's that?
Yeah, the hotel usually just takes it. It's great.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
tell them to pull your shower head down while they're at it too, because it's always left up.
Yes, absolutely. It always is. It be even on the right side by the shower bench. It's kind of crazy. As far as the question about the type of plane, so most of the time you cannot get in without closing the door 100%. So I don't know what your experience is, Greg. My husband's had to do this twice on a plane, and they just pull, basically it's almost like the first class privacy curtain, how they have that in certain sections of the plane. They pull that and just don't let anybody come in. But the door, we've never been in one where the door's shut. Anybody been?
Got the stanky leg just kind of hanging out there. They pull the curtain. I think, listen, at the end of the day, it's their responsibility to work with you to do that stuff. So it's not like the most ideal thing, but at the same time is like it's right. It's probably better trying to figure that out than staying in your seat and seeing what happens, right? So try to figure that out, what works for you. To get there, yeah, but it's really hard to have the door like be shut while you're in there. I think it's just kind of open, or if you have someone with you, stand there, or the flight attendant should shut the curtain and then let anyone bounce back and kind of just hold the door there for you until you're finished.
It's emergency only kind of time.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be like, if you just want to get want to get up and move my legs, so I just go in the aisle chair. But I think it's there if you're in an emergency, and it's good to have it when it's there just in case.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, good questions, David. It's good.
Jackie, did you have your hand up? You can go ahead.
I did have my hand up a few minutes ago, and I just wanted to kind of attest to Wheel the World a little bit. I know you guys were talking a lot about like international travel, but I think at the beginning I saw a lot of you guys say that like you haven't really done a lot of traveling. So I would just encourage you to also maybe check out Wheel the World opportunities for in-state. I live in Colorado Springs, and we were able to work with them this summer, and they were highlighting a lot of accessibility opportunities for adventure within just the city of Colorado Springs. So even if you guys aren't ready to, I think, travel internationally, know that there's still a lot of travel. I know someone mentioned Florida or something, but there's like a lot of travel, and they did like adventure, like outdoor fishing. We did adaptive cycling and went through Garden of the Gods. So just encourage you guys to definitely keep adventuring, but check it out if you're not ready to international travel. There's probably a lot in your state that is adaptive, that's there, that Wheel the World has went in and identified that's available.
We have a new program at Wheel the World called Destination Verified. And it's called a DMO, a destination marketing organization. So places like Visit Colorado Springs, Visit Bend, Oregon, Visit Miami, Visit Fort Lauderdale. A lot of these organizations, they pay for us to come in and do an accessibility study of their city, where they're lacking. They might make changes, but then also several of them do a media project with us, where that's what we did in Colorado Springs. We make beautiful videos of people participating in the things they have to offer. And right now it's been tier 2, we call them tier 2 cities. So it's, it's not the Denver, but it's Colorado Springs. And it's incredible things that these cities are doing to attract visitors with disabilities, and also just highlight the accessible activities. We are doing one right now in Bend, Oregon, and it's whole Visit Central Oregon. And it's incredible stuff that they're doing. And they're wanting travelers that have accessibility needs to come check out what they have to offer. So you can also, if you want to look at some of the videos we've done about different cities, you can just go to our YouTube page, waste some time. Come on, go to our YouTube page. And it has all these videos. The Colorado Springs one is beautiful. I told my husband, I'm like, we're going to Colorado Springs. We're going fly fishing. We're going to go to Garden of the Gods. Like it's really amazing some of the stuff that we're able to highlight, and we're using people in the wheelchair community to make these videos, and it's been really great. I'm actually in San Francisco right now. There's a conference called Travelability that I'm at, and it's where a lot of these big organizations like Visit Central Oregon, Visit New Hampshire, all these organizations are coming to learn about how to promote accessible travel within their community. And so I think it's amazing because it's making these communities better for the people that live there, but also me as a traveler, a companion, it's going to make better places for us to go travel.
Well, I was just going to say too, I think not only just for us individuals in chairs, but also like Joy partners and companions, right, that are nervous to go traveling with those people. It's a lot, it's a lot on them too. So I think knowing that these places are good for everyone and takes the stress off of them to be able to push, carry, pull, whatever needs to happen, is huge too. So it's not always just about us, but our community larger than that too as well. To have that, and then people can be companions on your trips too as well, on other trips that we go on. So it's great.
We are just about getting to 6:30, but thank you everyone for contributing and all the informative information. So any last comments or questions?
Travel.
I hope you guys all come check out Wheel the World. Come check us out for a hotel room. Everyone needs to go ahead and stay. I want you guys to stay somewhere that's right for you. This is, to me, just the best thing. Showing up at a hotel room and knowing that's the right one you need has been incredible.
Thanks so much, Joy.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Diane and Meg and everyone from Kelly Brush. Good job. This has been one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Everyone should get out there and travel. And if you guys ever have any questions, as you see, there's a ton of people on this call. So reach out to one another and connect with each other, because definitely shouldn't stop you from traveling and exploring all the fun things in the world. So happy you guys could come on and happy you guys could help each other out.
Yes, thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah, I'll see you guys soon.
Go travel.
Bye. Happy travels.
Bye, everyone. See you guys soon.
Bye.
Greg, if you want to stay on for a sec.
I was going to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. One sec. See you later.
Sorry I made it late.
Oh, no, you're good. I'm happy you could join.
I do. I got a basketball chair from your guys' foundation, and it's been great. I just I don't know if I can ever do it again, but I would sure love it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Greg was awesome.
Yeah, every 2 years you can apply, Dan. So if you need anything else, you're getting active again. Let us
Well, I
know.
like that bike behind you. What is that?
The one in the picture, or the one over my other shoulder?
Either one.
That's a
They
mountain
both
bike.
look cool.
Yes, Anna, that's one of our grant recipients. Anna's that's a mountain bike. This is a racing chair behind me, to push in like for running. Yeah,